Welcome back to HQ Spotlight. The NFL offseason. How about the NFC North? Questions before training camp talking about the Lions, the Vikings, the Packers, and the Bears. Of course, the Lions won that division a year ago. And here to chop it up and break it down, Bryant, McFadden, and Kyle Long going to talk some NFC North. And guys, Bryant, we'll start with you. I mean, the Lions are one of the best stories, not just in the division, but really in the NFL last year. In spite of losing Aiden Hutchinson to a gruesome leg injury in Week 6, he's expected to be back right away from Week 1. What else are we looking for the reigning NFC North champions?
Well, you look at this roster, you talked about the talent, the expectations, a very, very talented roster in terms of personnel. But the one area of concern I think I see once again for this team, Kyle, is on the defensive side. Pass rusher outside of Aiden Hutchinson. Yes, he is expected to be 100% ready to go. But when he was at his best, granted, he was a terror for any opposing offensive lineman he faced. But he was a one-man man. No one else came to the party. So who else will emerge to be a consistent pass rusher alongside Aiden Hutchinson? Because even with that injury, one would think it might take some time to kind of get his legs under him, understanding and knowing the time that he's missed and the rehab part of just getting back to being his old self. But outside of that, can Marcus Davenport stay healthy enough to be able to show his type of production? We don't know. So that is the biggest concern for me as we get ready for training camp with the Detroit Lions. Offensively, they got every dude you would want to have. Look at the secondary. I love the up-and-coming secondary as well. The second-level guys, the linebackers are there. But in terms of rushing the passer, it's Aiden Hutchinson and who else? That has to be resolved by the end of training camp.
You know, this is why I love having B back as a teammate. We got all the bases covered. He's got the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to go on the offensive side of the ball. And regardless who is calling plays or the mad scientist is drawing up plays in the sand for the Detroit Lions, the one thing remains constant: the offensive line. And their success is the lifeblood of this Detroit Lions football team. And they drafted a man out of Georgia, Tate, by the name of Tate Ratledge. I love Tate Ratledge in college. He's kind of a Swiss Army knife, do-it-all. They've got him moved in there at center with Frank Ragnow getting out of the building, a huge leadership portion of that football team and a great center for that football team. Hopefully they can bridge the gap with centers, having Tate Ratledge step in seamlessly to this offensive line. So whatever direction they want to go in offensively, they can have a strong guy at the center position. I think it's a huge part.
Yeah, Ratledge is a guy who played all three positions at Georgia, had the injuries last year, but I'm with you. He's an absolute dog, pun intended, and a guy that can make an impact right away for a very important position on the field for that offense that was humming last year in Detroit. Let's talk about the Packers, guys. And you lose one of the best cornerbacks in Jair Alexander. You do spend 2 of your first 3 draft picks on wide receivers, including a speedster out of Texas and Matthew Golden. How do you think they've improved themselves, and can they compete with Detroit?
Well, obviously, there's going to be continued competition in that receiver room, and there's always people fighting for their opportunity to be the number one guy at receiver position playing for Jordan Love. We know that they've got a plethora of options, but for me, it's the offensive line that I'm going to take a look at. The guy they've invested so much in is Jordan Love. The way you can maximize his productivity is having the best 5 out there. And to be quite frank, I think last year we saw a group without one of the best 5 guys starting for him week in, week out. And that was first-round pick from 2024, Jordan Morgan, another Swiss Army knife kind of guy. And I think he's going to be competing at the left tackle spot with Rasheed Walker. He's going to be going into his contract year. So the Packers want to see their first-round investment from last year come to fruition as a starting offensive lineman. They'll do anything. They'll try to figure out where he's going to be. If it's left tackle, if it's right guard, Sean Ryan over there is a guy that I could see getting competed with for his spot. But the offensive line, always a point of conversation with me.
Well, for me, I'm going to transition to the defensive side and go to the secondary. You talked about Jair Alexander no longer being a part of the Green Bay Packers organization, and they kind of grew accustomed to not having him in the lineup. But the difference between this situation, Kyle, is that you know he will not be there. They were hoping that he could stay healthy, right? So then, of course, when injury happened, you just kind of threw a guy into the equation. Now he's no longer a part of your team. So who will step up to the plate and be able to identify themselves as CB1 for their defense? Because when you look at the Green Bay Packers, when you're playing in the NFC North Division, where you're playing against a bunch of wide receiver ones. You talk about having Justin Jefferson, having to see him twice a year, DJ Moore, having to see him twice a year, Amon-Ra St. Brown, J-Mo Williams, all of these guys are legit pass catchers. You would like to have you would like to be able to identify who your top dog is at the cornerback position. Right now, we don't know. I don't know if they know, but hopefully they have all of those things resolved once training camp is over, because in that division, you cannot lack quality sound cover guys when you're playing against some of the wide receivers that I mentioned.
No doubt about it. And some of the quarterbacks for that matter. And that's where we start with the long-suffering Chicago Bears. It was an up-and-down season for the #1 pick in the draft, rookie Caleb Williams. They certainly have bolstered up their line of scrimmage. They got some picks there and some guys to help them out there. But I think everybody wants to know, what is that offense going to look like with a new staff in year number 2 of Caleb Williams?
Well, I think it's going to be a continuation of the growth process we saw for Caleb Williams in his rookie year. A lot of these injuries we saw, they were self-inflicted wounds. So, taking sacks when you're supposed to be getting rid of the ball, not staring down one receiver, not being able to go through your progression. Ben Johnson, in my opinion, is going to be done with that. He's going to rid Caleb Williams of a lot of those bad habits by the end of training camp. We're still going to see that stuff blotted throughout his rap sheet, his score sheet throughout the season. But I like the direction the offense is going to go in. What I'm going to focus on, again, is the offensive line. They went and brought in Jonah Jackson to play the right guard position next to first-rounder Darnell Wright. They bring in Drew Dahlman at the center position. You get all-star Joe Tooney at the left guard position. My God, we're so close to hitting a home run. But Braxton Jones, the intended, expected left tackle for the Chicago Bears, has dealt with injury. They are going to have competition with the young offensive lineman out of Boston College, Ozzie Trapillo. He's a guy whose old man played football for a long time. He understands what it takes to be successful. If you can get those 5 pieces right for the Chicago Bears, it makes that job of getting Caleb Williams in this offense back on track that much easier.
I'm a big fan of Luther Burden, too. Go ahead. Sorry, B-Mac.
Yeah, I was saying, Kyle, you talked about competition. When you look at this offense in totality, the team, there's a lot of solidified positions, but there is a potential competition that I think we're not really talking about. What about the tight end competition? Cole Kmet, I really love what he brings to the table, and I do believe both tight ends will play a lot in terms of Cole Kmet and Colston Loveland. But the competition that I'm talking about is which tight end will earn the trust from their quarterback once training camp is over, because Colston Loveland was a coveted pass catcher in this past year's draft. I mean, we heard teams trying to trade up to go get him, and Chicago didn't want to do any business because they wanted to have him to be a part of their organization. Well, he is there. So who will emerge to be the fan favorite of Caleb Williams at the tight end position? Will it be Cole Kmet, or will it be urgent potential superstar Colston Loveland? Either case is going to be a win-win, because I do like both skill sets from either side. But you know how it is, Kyle. Once training camp is over, you have to identify that depth chart. You will either have a tight end 1 with one name, a tight end 2 with the other name, and they're going to go off and running with that mindset. But I really love the competition that we will see evolve throughout their time in training camp in Chicago to try to emerge to be that main guy for Caleb once camp is over.
Tight end, such an important position in that Ben Johnson offense. And Mike was talking about Luther Burden III, who is a really talented receiver, had some character red flags. He's going to get the opportunity to compete for a lot of reps, which leads to this. Are you going to be an 11 personnel most of the time, or 12 personnel? And how those two tight ends compete in training camp and show that they're both worthy of being on the field could dictate Ben Johnson lining up in the 12 personnel more often than not.
All right, B-Mac, we'll start with you for the final team, and it's an interesting case here with the Vikings, right? J.J. McCarthy essentially got like a medical red shirt last year, but this year the expectations are that he is going to be ready and be the guy in Minnesota. What are we looking at there for Minnesota as a whole, and as a rookie quarterback with that offense, a great play caller? What do you see there?
Well, let's start with the rookie quarterback. It's the world of unknowns with J.J. McCarthy, because he didn't play at all, right, because of an injury. But one J.J. McCarthy has on his side is the play caller, the head coach, and Kevin O'Connell. Because Kevin O'Connell has shown the ability to be successful with me playing quarterback and Kyle Long playing quarterback. So if you're J.J. McCarthy, if you just play smart, sound football, Kevin O'Connell has shown the ability to get the best out of whoever it is lining up under center. So that's one luxury for J.J. McCarthy. In terms of a whole, me personally, I got to show my bias. I got to transition to the defensive side, man, because when you look at this defense, they really surprised a lot of naysayers, right? A lot of football fans with how they attack opposing offenses. But you know what they did a lot? They sent pressure, relentless pressure. You know why that was one of the more vocal points of their defense? Was because they had some issues in the back end. Well, losing Stephon Gilmore provided more issues in the back end in terms of cornerback play. Who is going to step up to be that outside corner? Because we know Byron Murphy is the best.
Hey guys, sorry, my internet just went in and out. I'm glad that BMAC was talking about the secondary here for the Minnesota Vikings because they've invested so much in that line of scrimmage, getting pressure. I don't think they're going to have to manufacture as much second level pressure with this unit here that's taking the football field. But to BMAC's point, who is going to be helping on the back end of Brian Flores' defense? If you're going to be attacking, you're going to have a cerebral group of guys on the back end who can take things away. That calls for the right men, and the right men they're always being looked for in the NFL, especially in the secondary.
Kyle, thank you so much. BMAC, both of you, appreciate the 411 on the NFC North as we look at the odds to win that division. Not surprisingly, it's the Lions again at plus 155, the Packers at 250, the Vikings at 270, and then a massive drop-off for the Bears at plus 550.